After the first question, which is please introduce yourself and to tell us why you're running for commissioner.
You can go to voteTimBennett.com and learn all about me there. So I'm not going to rehash a bio, but I did a little research. Has anybody ever heard where pine and brine are forever wooing? Show of hands. No. Someone has, no? Okay, well, it was on an old poster, which I think is kind of cool. We've all heard the nation's summer capital. We've all heard that one. And then I moved here 4 years ago, and the one that I think we could say is that there's a lot of rules in Rehoboth. So my partner and I bought a house here 4 years ago, and it was somewhat neglected. And we started to do some work, and then soon found out that there was lots of rules about fences, rules about driveways, rules about the yard, rules about sheds. Don't take the shed down. You can't move the shed. There's rules about what we can do with a pool. You can't do with a pool. There were all kinds of rules. Rules about trees, lots of rules about trees. We still have a tree problem. So there's lots of rules in Rehoboth. So when all our neighbors just looked at us and smiled and said, "Welcome to Rehoboth." So so we found out that God bless all of the people that came before us, because thankfully rules are what helps the city make it so livable and make it so desirable, and why we all love living here, because we all follow the rules. So thankfully, particularly with the generations before us, when you look at the CDP, two most important things here in the city are the beach and the boardwalk. And that's why people come here. And so all of those things have been well taken care of. We have great scale in the city as well. And so during the pandemic, I was down here and I thought, I want to become part of the city. I want to join some committees. And over 2 administrations, I had tried to join committees. I never got a phone call. So I decided to watch every single available meeting that's online, and it really is a tale of two cities. So back to the rules, where the residents had to follow the rules, apparently it doesn't necessarily happen when it comes to city government. So when there are projects that come up, sometimes rules are just a suggestion. When it comes up sometimes for also doing things such as projects that might have some special interest, we should put the city first rather than not vetting projects or making sure they're budgeted. And I would also say one big takeaway is that communication at best over all administrations is poor, and we need to do a better job of this. So that's why I'm running for commissioner, is because I think Rehoboth deserves better, and I think we need to have a new voice and a fresh voice for the city. So if you go to VoteTimBennett.com, you hear all of my other positions, but I think it's important that we follow the rules, because that's what makes the city desirable, livable, clean, friendly, and safe. Thank you.
Richard, you're next. Same question.
Thank you, Mark. I'm going to stand up for just a moment, and then I'll join Tim and my other friends up here sitting down. I just want to say hello, and first of all, say what an honor it has been to serve all of you the last 3 years. I was elected in 2018 as one of your commissioners, and it has been an incredible privilege to work for you, for the residents and the homeowners. And I just can't say that strongly enough. This has been an incredibly inspiring COVID year, challenging time, but a very productive term in my thoughts. And so it's wonderful to see you all here. It's wonderful to be running for re-election. And with that, I will sit down, but I just wanted to let you know how strongly I feel about that. David and Mark, I want to thank both of you for hosting this. My wife, Sherry Wright, part of my team at home, who's been incredibly supportive of me all of these years. Sherry and I have been very proud members of CAMP Rehoboth and our BHA for many, many years. We participate in many of the activities of both organizations. We parked over in the city lot, and we just walked over Steve Elkins' way. I was responsible for the legislation that created Steve Elkins' Way in honor of one of our civil rights icons, not only in Rehoboth Beach, the founder, co-founder of this establishment that we're in today, but known nationally and internationally. It just gives me such a warm feeling every time I walk through Steve Elkins' Way. And of course, I was able to work with Faye and with Murray and with Chris, president of the board here. And what an honor it was to be able to do that early in my tenure after being elected. We are in Camp Rehoboth, the house with a heart in it. Think about that. I think that sent an incredible message to all of us that are interested in the governance of our small city. That's the logo here, and it's one that I think we need to project out across the community as we work together to solve our problems. This has been an incredible week at home. We've had my adult kids, their spouses, and a 17-year-old and a 9-year-old with us all week. It's been chaos. It's been incredible distraction to me, but we've not seen them for 18 months. And so it's wonderful fun. I look forward to getting home with them later today. Sherry and I have been coming here for over 30 years. We've owned property here since 2002. Our full-time home has been here since 2009. I feel that I've got extensive background professionally and as a commissioner. And as we move along in this dialogue today, I look forward to sharing some of that. Thank you all for being here.
That's our timer. Rachel, please.
Okay. Good morning, everyone, and thank you for the opportunity to participate in this forum today. My name is Rachel Macha. I'm a native here in Delaware, and I've been a property owner in Rehoboth for the past 21 years, of which the last 4 years I've been here full-time. My background was printed by the CAMP and letter, so I'm just going to focus on what I bring to the commissioner role, highlighting really 3 key competencies that I'm focused on that I can bring to the table here with experience, leadership, and integrity. First, from an experience standpoint, I currently serve on the Planning Commission, the Plant, Shade, and Tree Commission, and I've helped Main Street with marketing and communications, specifically the Respect Rehoboth campaign that was kicked off during COVID. I bring the right skill set needed to complement the board. Over the past 30 years, I have served as a director on community boards and nonprofit organizations in Delaware. I've also served on various church, school, and committees focused on strategy, development, marketing, and communications. So I have contacts and relationships statewide at the city, county, and state level, which will be important for Rehoboth as we navigate the implementation of our CDP, which is the strategy of our city, and the actions and projects associated with it. From a leadership and integrity standpoint, throughout my life, I've built a reputation of honesty and leadership, unquestioned integrity, and experience by practicing a simple but powerful principle: ask, listen, and act. People that know me know that if I commit to doing something, it'll get done. And if that commitment takes time to complete, it'll hang with me until I get it accomplished. In this campaign, we're still talking about the same issues as we did last year, which are many of the same issues from 10 years ago. The outdated, conflicting, and confusing city code, the infrastructure maintenance and upgrades needed, parking, the streetscape project on Wilmington and Baltimore, and executing the CDP and bring more cultural diversity to this town in the arts, theater, and music area, while also ensuring a fiscally responsible budget. Unfortunately, the current majority of the mayor and commissioners were commissioners when these issues were issues years ago. Most were on the Board of Commissioners when the City Hall project was underway, which took us into a significant debt of over $17 million. Yet they didn't have the vision to build a parking garage as part of this project. If they had, we probably would have solved the parking issue about 7 years ago. If I'm fortunate enough to become a commissioner, I'll take on these difficult issues, find ways to bring residents and businesses together to discuss ideas, solve these issues, and implement solutions. I'm an approachable, collaborative, and have an open mind, and have a track record of team building. In Rehoboth, my approach will hopefully result in building a unified community instead of creating a more divisive community. Thank you.
Thank you. Toni, same question, please.
Yes. Good morning, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm Toni Sharp, Mary Antoinette, and I'll be on the ballot as Mary A. Sharp. That's a lot for a kindergartner, I must tell you. At any rate, I thought a lot about why am I doing this? I was a commissioner from 2013 to 2019, and one of the very most important things is I was asked a number of times, would I run again? And I said, absolutely not. That is the absolute 100% truth. I needed to take a break, which I did after 9 out of 10 years of retirement, volunteering for everything I could think of here in the city, going to every meeting I could imagine in the city. And it was time to take a step back and just reflect on the time as a commissioner and the time that I spent working on other projects here in Rehoboth. What I learned during the pandemic, which was so powerful for me, is that not only taking care of yourself is the number one concern before you can really bring your best to anything else, but it gave me a real perspective on things that I did extremely well, things that can really benefit from improvement, and possibly things I never want to do again. So, you know, I came to the conclusion that I have to take my own advice sometimes. Many times when people complain to me about the city, I say, well, what are you going to do about it? And they say, nothing. And I say, well, then somebody needs to step up. So in the final analysis, I decided, honestly, the Sunday before the petitions were due, that I needed to take my own advice, step up, bring a fresh, new, renewed perspective to the commissioners, and let the voters decide. I am perfectly fine trusting every one of you in this room to make the best and most powerful decision. So I thank you that I can be here this morning, and you will decide if I do or do not get a third term. Thank you.
Thank you. Next question. As I mentioned earlier, we had quite a few questions on the parking issue. So we have a parking question, and we'll start with Dick. Do you believe Rehoboth has a parking problem? And would you consider extending permit parking to 10 p.m. to make sure everyone who parks in the city pays some share of the operating costs of the city?
And what is the time frame again, Mark?
10, to match it would be to match the meters.
Time frame that Charlie's given us for that.
Oh, I'm
an answer.
Yeah, it's 2 minutes. It's 2 minutes, yes, I'm sorry,
Okay,
I misunderstood.
Okay, thank you. Parking, of course, has been a conversation we have all had for as many years as we have all lived here during the summer season. It's an ongoing conversation. We have tried a number of things since I've been commissioner, and certainly years before that. We have adjusted the times on the meters. We have, of course, a different set of types of meters now than we had even just a few years ago to try to make it more efficient, easier for people, that they don't have to go find porters. It's the credit card, they can use the app. On the phone, we've done that citywide now. We've had parking committees. We had for a short time on the parking garage group looking at that. Yes, it can be a serious problem if you drive in, you don't have much time, and or if you want to see your destination as you park, which is kind of human nature. You want to see where you're going, then you park. We usually can't do that in the summer. And so there are parking spaces if you get off the main drag. And we had a parking study a few years ago that indicated that to us, that you can find parking, just not always convenient. Some good things have happened. We've opened up the big city lot right up the way here behind the fire hall. That has added a lot of parking to us. This summer, in a collaborative effort between the Chamber of Commerce, the city, and Cape and Logan School System, we've opened up the school parking lot for employees to park for free this summer. That is helping. We need to be creative and figure out who can we partner with to do these kinds of things. I think we need to return to a thorough, comprehensive study as to whether a small parking garage would really be helpful. It could be, but I think we need more data than we had a couple of years ago going forward. Thank you.
Rachel, same question, please.
Sure. I actually agree with Dick. I will say, being on the Planning Commission, I expect that this will be an issue that will come up in the CDP. We've spent a lot of time surveying businesses, residents, and tourists that visit our city, as well as organizations here in the city. So I suspect, based on some of the data that I've seen, that is going to be an issue that does come up in the CDP, which will help us then, as Dick has mentioned, look at potential options and hopefully get creative. I always thought it was a good opportunity to try and work out something with the new elementary school. There's a beautiful new parking lot there, and to me it seems like there's a great opportunity that folks can use that and maybe have some kind of an app that you can sign up and, also kind of maybe even reserve a spot for the day. And then perhaps we as a city could have some kind of co-op with perhaps the hotels here and their shuttles to do some back and forth or create some kind of a shuttle back and forth to the beach from that parking lot. I also have gone around town and talked to employers. I believe there's a huge issue for employee parking that we need to also help our employers with. And then again, you know, as Dick mentioned, maybe that is an option that we can also promote more within our businesses to use a lot like that, or potentially find other parking areas that we could utilize for kind of near parking, but not necessarily right in Rehoboth. Thank you.
Toni.
If we weren't talking about parking, I don't know what we would talk about. It is something I think that's on everybody's mind every time you come into the city. And my experience tells me there was a huge missed opportunity in the last few years. There was a committee chaired by Linda Kaufman. How many people in this room knew Linda Kaufman? And her depth of knowledge and experience on parking issues in general. It was comprised of businesses, residents, trying to get all the stakeholders around the table. That committee, I believe, from my recollection, gave the commissioners, including myself, about almost 20 recommendations of things they would like to see done, even if on a trial basis. Well, I am honest in, I think, my reflection on it, that I did not advocate hard enough for those recommendations to at least be tried. So if I'm fortunate to get on the committee again, I would absolutely be a staunch advocate of taking those recommendations, dusting them off at the commissioner level, and making a determination if some of the things deserve a trial basis rather than starting to recreate the wheel again that goes round and around and around on parking.
Thank you. Tim.
Yeah, it is Groundhog Day. I mean, I've watched, I think I read some old letters from 25 years ago, and parking's been an issue. It's not unique to Rehoboth, but we're a resort. We're a resort town. And one thing I do think, having, you know, you look at some of the signs, I don't know, they're confusing, some of them. I don't know why we just don't say parking is going to start March 1st and it's going to end December 1st, or whatever the issue is going to be, rather than the third Monday after the second holiday of the first. I still look and I see, you know, visitors come, even residents, we look at it and go, wait a minute, was that 3 weeks after Labor Day? What do I put in the meter? And then you can go within 600 feet, and sometimes they have to put the ticket on the dash. Sometimes they use the app. So I don't know why we have different systems. I agree with my colleagues up here that I do think we do need to experiment a little bit, though. There's other resort communities that have experimented successfully with other forms of transportation. A lot of our traffic comes from nearby locales for people coming in to grab dinner or to partake in entertainment, and whether we could use other modes of transportation to get some of the vehicles off the streets, such as electric cars or some other sort of transportation. I think that would be helpful, whether we looked at doing a test with North Shores or maybe some of the communities across Route 1 or some of the other nearby communities. I think would be helpful.
Excellent. Our next question is about the direction of the city, and we received a lot of questions that I'm going to try and consolidate. One person asked if federal legislation is passed to support infrastructure, what would Rehoboth do with that money, and where would we want to go? Other folks expressed concerns about businesses that have moved to the highway. Some asked questions about overall development plans for the city. And I love this question from Kathy Davison. She said that in the July 13th commentary in the Cape Gazette, the city commissioner, Susan Gay, says, "We must do everything in our power to retain our local flavor." What is our local flavor, and what does that mean to you? So in that context, if you guys want to talk a little bit about what your strategic vision is for the city moving forward. And we start with Rachel, please.
Sure. From a federal perspective, I have thought about this whole infrastructure question because I do think that there will be some funds available and coming our way. I do think that there's an opportunity to look at some probably deferred projects, as well as some concerns that I know citizens have shared with me. One is around burying overhead lines. I know that's been on the table for a long time, but perhaps there's an opportunity to use some of those infrastructure dollars towards that. I also think there's an opportunity to level our sidewalks. I think I have 2 dogs. I walk around the city all the time, and I'm always stumbling, and I know other people are as well. So I think there's an opportunity, hopefully, there that we could find a way to position that as a project. So I do think that there are certainly some projects that the city has that we should consider. As it relates to the businesses going out to Route 1, from my perspective, I think we need to do a better job as a city in how we, one, interact with our businesses and understand more about what their concerns are. We know that we've lost a couple of really iconic businesses here, and I think that's very, very sad. But I also feel like we should really, if we can't retain them and save them to stay in our city, I think we should work with them on what that messaging and communication should be as a city. So I think there's unfortunately been a lack of communication and how that's all been kind of shared around our community. And I think we should do a better job in that area. So I think we're getting better on communication, but I think there's a much better path for us to even do better in that area. I think what time is the third part? I had infrastructure, moving to Route 1. Did I miss the third one?
Overall vision.
Oh, overall vision. Yeah, so from my perspective, from an overall vision, I think that there's an opportunity from a city standpoint to work together with residents, businesses, and visitors so that we all work together. I think there's a lot of opportunity to just get together in a room and have conversations and discussions to just understand where people are coming from and come out the other end with a better solution on issues that we're working on. Thank you.
Toni, same question.
My priority answer on this is neighborhoods, neighborhoods, neighborhoods. And the reason I say that is if there are funds available, sometimes we get bogged down into really large projects. I happen to believe that we have an opportunity, if we were to improve our communication and outreach to our neighborhoods, I might be able to actually say, what are the top 2 priorities in the north side of town? What are the top 2 priorities in Schoolview? What are the top 2 priorities on the south side of town? At the moment, I cannot articulate that. So to me, if we are fortunate enough to get some additional funding, yes, we have lots of big projects to fund, but dependent on the size of whatever we're working with, there is a case to be made that small projects in neighborhoods that could be funded, that could improve the quality of life for all of us who are here, especially those of us who live here year-round, summer, winter, spring, and fall. Those are in the wrong order, but I think it's just such a huge opportunity, in my opinion, to reach out to the neighborhoods and start delivering tangible results so folks feel that they are really included in the priorities of our city.
Yeah, I think as we all know, growth is inevitable, and one of the words that I talked about was good growth, and for Rehoboth, it doesn't mean bigger, but it means better, and I think we need to manage our growth. We know we have some large projects that are coming, which of course will enhance the city, but we have to make sure that our infrastructure can handle it. And based upon the CDP and based upon how this growth will come, particularly with these 3 hotels that have been in the news, we need to figure out, how does that work and how does that fit into the plan for the city's future, and what infrastructure is going to be needed in order to make sure that it does fit within the city and the city can handle it from the infrastructure standpoint of what's needed to operate a hotel. I came from an area where we tried to shoehorn in a lot of large projects, and didn't follow the rules, and they're paying for it now. Whether it's just being able to handle from a sewer standpoint or a water standpoint, or even just trying to handle it from a people standpoint and moving them around. So we need to make sure that we can handle it that way. The other thing I really think we should do when we talk about the flavor of the city, we have a great tree canopy that we need to protect, and it's very unique to us. We're somewhere around 50.4% of the city is covered with what we call our tree canopy. I would say that a stretch goal for us would be to try to move that to about 55% in the next 5 years. And I think that would be a great thing for the city to do. So that was, when you talk about local flavor, I think that's one thing that really does enhance our city and make us unique.
Thank you. Richard?
Thank you. Excuse me. Great question. We will be receiving additional dollars from the feds for infrastructure. We already know we are receiving some post-COVID dollars for infrastructure. The commissioners are already discussing this as an issue and trying to set priorities within the limitations of these post-COVID dollars that go into infrastructure. You know, much of what the commissioners does makes these flash headlines, but a lot of the real hard work is being done by the commissioners working with our city team. I see the city manager here today, and she's outstanding and great to have her with us. And her team works so closely with the commissioners in terms of trying to set priorities and understand what the real issues are in the neighborhoods. And we do have infrastructure issues. Stormwater runoff is a critical issue for us. We've begun to work on it. It's extremely expensive, but it's so much more than just dealing with stormwater. Because where does stormwater go? It goes into our freshwater lakes. It goes into the canal. It goes into the ocean. It carries pollutants. Or if we spend money on state-of-the-art facilities for stormwater, which is very expensive, but it's a long-range, long-term way to handle this. Streets. We need to deal with crumbling streets. We need to deal with crumbling sidewalks and curbs. And all of that is, well, it's not the flashy stuff, it's the critical stuff. Preparation for climate change. Climate change is here. We can't wait for the worst storm ever. We need to prepare for that. That's a big part of it. I'll talk about unique flavor in another question. I just want to give a shout out to our state senator, Ernie Lopez, who has joined us. Thank you for coming to support this effort today, Senator Lopez. Thank you.
All righty, then I think everybody covered that question. We're going to start off with Toni on the next question. Excuse me. There are multiple properties in our city which may want to change their zoning from residential to commercial. Under what circumstances would you consider such?
Would you repeat that one more time?
Sure, certainly. There are multiple properties in the city that may request a change of their zoning from residential to commercial. Under what circumstances would you support that? And we start with Toni.
You know, I'm not going to speculate on what I would do before all the facts are presented and what exactly is the ask, if you will. I am perfectly aware that sometimes zoning changes may be in order, and I think you would have to evaluate, are they good for our city? Things that are good for the city of Rehoboth Beach are oftentimes easy to communicate, and I think that zoning is it's a complex issue. It has many facets to it, and I would be supportive of going through the right process at the right time, getting the right stakeholders, and thoroughly understanding an issue before I weigh in on which way I would actually go.
Yeah, it's a loaded question. I mean, it's,
I was trying not to say.
I mean, are we putting in a cannabis shop? Are we putting in what are we putting in? And as Toni said, without exactly knowing, what the project is, I think we do have to, and I've talked to a number of small business owners, and I do think that the city, there are several times where I think that we've been unreasonable as a city sometimes in dealing with some of our zoning codes in terms of flexibility and asking people to do things that that are, I think all of us would say, are a little bit over the top or unreasonable. So we need to have flexibility. If you look at old maps of the city and you can see where certain things were and where there are now new things, I think we would say that it's generally been improved. And when there are times where the zoning can be changed or we can bring new projects in that are going to enhance the city and make it better, then I think we need to consider it. And if you've bought properties that are near a commercial zone or may be near a commercial zone, then you need to understand that that might change as well. But to arbitrarily just figure out that maybe in the middle of some place that it might change from residential to commercial, I'm not sure I can give you a full answer on that. But I do think that there are times where I think we have to look forward and say that we need to have discussions about whether it's going to be beneficial for the city as a whole and part of what the vision is for the city in the future as to whether it makes sense to change zoning.
Same question, please.
Yeah, it is a complex question, and it's not an either or all of the time. A lot of the work of the commissioners is kind of in what I call the gray areas, not the black or the white areas, not the either or absolute areas. So it's understanding all of these complexities that go into this, and it's understanding the need for listening and learning. In a case like this, to me, it would be listening to the local residents, listening to those neighbors. What will be the impact? What will be the long-range impact? Sometimes it's bringing in a consultant to help us understand this kind of planning, because we are not experts in this. We are volunteers trying to do our best on behalf of everyone in the community. So it's understanding kind of long-range impact of doing these kinds of things. And while I believe in following the rules, I believe that we have to stay within our code. There are times where maybe the code needs to be changed. And let me just put in a plug for something we've been talking about for way too long, and that is to bring in an expert to our city to help us do a thorough review of our zoning code, to get it up to date, to make it more understandable, more practical for people. And of course, you do that with leadership from an expert and then with a lot of community input, by putting on workshops, by putting on discussion groups all across the city. But we need to do that. We talked about that would be very expensive. We put some money into our capital improvement plan budget for that, and we need to move ahead. We need to step up as a city and to make that happen.
Thank you. Rachel, same question, please.
As a planning commission member, I will have to pass, I think, on that question, realizing that we have a project in front of us today that is on this very topic. But may I take the time and go back to the last question?
Sure.
Okay, good.
90 minutes, or 90 seconds.
No, 90 minutes. I don't think anyone wants to hear me talk that long. But I do want to go back to the local flavor. I didn't have a chance to really respond to that because I did read Susan Gates' article, and I've had a chance to really kind of reflect on that. She doesn't really kind of go into what local flavor means to her, but to me, it really does mean to retain and attract the local businesses that are just so unique and welcoming to our town. I also think that beautiful tree canopy, as Tim has mentioned, is something that our city is known for, and I think we take large strides to preserve that. Being on the Plant, Shade, and Tree Commission, I can attest to that. I also think we need to offer a variety of activities that our residents and visitors can enjoy, mainly around the arts and entertainment area. I think we need to support the arts. And I also think the farmers market is a great, unique little gem here in our town that we get to enjoy for, the shoulder season and also the summer. I think we need to continue to build a real community feel in our neighborhoods. I think that's really, really important for us to continue to do. And I think that is unique here in many ways. And I also think we need to encourage city-sponsored public events that foster unity in our community.
Thank you. Wonderful.
So I will dive into the next question. As Rachel alluded to, I think some candidates might not be able to answer all of the questions as we go. We did receive many questions about the Clear Space Theater, a few questions about Grove Park Dock, particularly about the processes of those businesses becoming, moving forward. And we received a couple questions about specific businesses other than these that are, in the process of opening in Rehoboth Beach. In the bigger picture, if you can't talk about those specifics, we'd love to know, like, what changes, if any, would you recommend concerning the Planning Commission and its processes and the processes that some of these businesses go through to get open and established in Rehoboth Beach?
Start with Tim.
Could you clarify the question then? I mean, did you want me to?
What changes, if any, would you recommend concerning the Planning Commission and its processes? And it's in the context of some of these businesses that are going through some of those processes right now. But I understand not everyone can comment about those specifics.
So in particularly Clear Space and the Grove Park Dock?
Mm-hmm.
How much time do I have? On both of those instances, I've talked to an awful lot of people, and I think a lot of the residents are just, scratch their heads a little bit about the whole thing and how it's dragged on so long. I don't quite understand, having watched the June 30th meeting, I don't know why there was a vote taken. And I don't know why, if in fact there was conflict as to whether there was actual plans that existed or not, why there was even a vote. I would not have held a vote until it was figured out what actually had transpired as I watched that. The Grove Park Dock, I also am confused how that got built when it wasn't funded and it's on land that the city doesn't own. How did that get passed? So while I think the Planning Commission does a lot of hard work, there's a lot of smart people on there, and they do rotate people through. I don't know if I would make any changes in terms of how we appoint people there, but I just think that the city overall needs more accountability, and I don't know who's in charge. So that's what I would say about it.
Thank you. Dick, same question.
Thank you. Let me speak specifically about these two and then in general, if I have time. Grove Park Dock, to me, is an incredible asset to our city. I think it will enhance quality of life here. It gives us something unique. When we talk about flavor in our town, we need these quality of life things that our competing beach towns do not have. People have a choice where to go spend their money. They could go up and down the coast. Why do they want to come to Rehoboth Beach? Because we have something the other communities don't have. We now have the stock. 78% of the stock has been paid for by outside dollars. They've been incredibly successful in bringing in money from other sources than our city tax source. We're working with a local foundation that is still raising money. Some of the money they're raising will come back to the city, so we'll be in even better shape. A shout out to my good friend and Commissioner Pat Caluzzi, who has been in charge of raising a lot of this money, working with this group. I think it's a wonderful asset. We have an agreement with the Secretary of the Army. We just talked about yesterday in the Commissioner meeting. This agreement's going forward, the Army Corps of Engineers, so that we have the right and, of course, the liability and all that to be there. In terms of Clear Space, if I'm fortunate enough to be reelected, that puts me or any of us that were to be elected into a quasi-judicial position. So, my comments at this point are very limited. The record will show on June 30th that I voted in support of the Planning Commission. I voted to affirm the two Planning Commission's decision to support this, building inspectors' decisions to support it. The record will show I did not feel that the Planning Commission behaved in an arbitrary and capricious manner. They conducted a very orderly and logical review, I think. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, again, I have to be careful with my comments here, being on the planning commission, but I will kind of take it up a level and give you my perspective, and this is on record. So the planning commission for many years, and even most recently around the projects at the table with us, have recommended that we have a city planner, and I am pleased to hear that I think we're actually moving forward with that. It's been something I think the city has needed for a very long time, and I think it will be helpful. I am concerned that the role of the city planner will grow very quickly, and he's not going to, or that person, I should, not he or she, but that person will not be kind of the savior, if you will. I'm afraid that that role is going to blossom so much they won't be able to focus on what they really need to focus on, which are the projects that are obviously coming before the city. I would love to see the city become more of a partner with developers that are bringing projects to us. I think there's an opportunity to streamline the process. Don't let it take 3 years for something to come past the mayor and commissioners and say no twice. But I think there's an opportunity that as a city, if we develop those relationships with developers, understand what they're trying to do and guide them along the way to say, this is what we'll pass the code, to follow the rules, or not. Let's talk about what we can do and how can we work with you to partner. There was a project as I was on the commission a year ago with a previous chair where that idea was teed up, and I actually think it's a great idea. I mean, in the business world, you don't just have something that's already been kind of pretty much half-baked or full-baked come before you. You're actually working along with people along the way through the process so that you can give guidance and bring a lot of different perspectives and a lot of different experiences to have that best solution at the end of the day. So I do think there's an opportunity, whether that's another resource in the city, like development person, I'm not sure, but I'm a little worried that the city planner just can't do all of that. So I'm out of time. Thank you.
I'm not going to second guess either the commissioners or the planning commission on anything they have done that I did not involve myself in, nor was I available for, nor was I in a position to cast a vote. I will say two things. If you go to my website, and I hope you pick this up on your way out, pick up this little flyer, which has my website on it, sharpforcommissioner.com. There's a banner, and you can click on clear space, and you will hear what I said in a commissioners meeting in April of 2019. April of 2019 about clear space. Then you can judge for yourself based on that 2-minute clip whether or not you believe we have advanced the project from what I said almost, actually a little over 2 years ago. Second, on the canal dock, I loved that project, loved it. I said it publicly on the record. I was the commissioner who said I wanted us to spend $20,000 when we were in the design phase and no more than $20,000 on wherever we were at that time. Unfortunately, I believe the additional funding happened during the budget process, which is very complicated, and everybody should go to those meetings one of these days. It's a way to spend a day. But you know, my intention with that, had I been there, would have been for each commissioner to actually cast a vote for and on behalf of the taxpayers when it came to spending additional funds. But I do not have anything further to say because Charlie just put up the stop sign. Thank you, Charlie.
All right, we're going to talk some trash here now. Do you or do you not support mandatory recycling? And how would you measure the success of any municipal recycling program? And I think we start with this, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay, thank you. That is a current issue. The commissioners are looking at the option of mandatory recycling for residents across the city, and then an annual charge of $135 a year. Think about it, $135 a year for a weekly pickup of your recycling, which is beneficial to the environment, not going into the landfill. To me, that's a bargain. So it gets added to a quarterly bill that we receive for our trash, our water. We're looking at consolidating those bills. There's some efficiency there. It will save the city money. It will save our staff, and then us as taxpayers. So, you know, mandatory seems to be a big word, but there's a lot of mandatory things that we do for the good of the whole. You know, I haven't had kids in schools for decades, but I really don't mind paying my taxes to the public school system because that really enhances quality of life across our community. Mandatory recycling, we should all be recycling. It's a no-brainer. So I think it behooves a community. I think it's a responsibility of people elected to have in leadership roles to be thinking about these broader long-term environmental issues. And we're trying to do that smarter. We want input. We want to hear from folks. You know, is this a good way to go? But, you know, personally, I think it is. I chair the Environment Committee that I created soon after I was elected commissioner. And that committee, if I talked any other way about this, would run me out the door. And so I model what I preach and what this committee is working so hard on. I think it's a good direction. Thank you.
Rachel?
I also support it. I think it's a nominal charge for us as residents to pay. I'm not exactly sure how to measure the success, but I'm sure there's data out there that we can collect and create the baseline and then see how we're doing. But in the end, my kids taught me how important recycling was as they went through school. And honestly, there are places that I've lived that we've actually separated more things out from a recycle bin than we do here. So there's, I think, an opportunity for us to probably even do better at it. But it's good for the environment. I think we as good citizens need to do it, and it's awesome for our community. So I'm totally supportive of it.
Toni?
I am chomping at the bit to talk some trash. I am telling you, and I'll tell you why. As residents here, especially full-time residents, we get two things that I appreciate very much from the city. We get some parking tags every year. Yes, we like that. Yes, and on our trash bill, which we just got, I'm sure you saw the line item of $300. The next line item is the recycle, $0. So I don't squabble with the programs at all. I squabble with the principle of the two things that we get. One of them is on the chopping block for all of us to pay an additional amount of money. It may be nominal to some, it may not be nominal to others. But the bottom line to me is if we can find money in our budget to do all sorts of other things, potlucks, I'm not even going to go into the list. We should be able to sharpen our pencils, go back to the drawing board and see if that charge that is being contemplated could possibly remain at $0. Chomping at the bit to have a seat at the table for that discussion.
Yes.
Dick's a good steward of the environmental committee. I see your bottle up there. You were telling me about.
I haven't given
He schooled me before we started about the plastic bottles, which I don't disagree with. I thought recycling was mandatory in the city. I'm supportive of, and particularly I know Dick has worked hard on this. I'm supportive of all the mandatory recycling in the city. I think the one challenge we have though as residents is a lot of the renters, and I see a lot of the stuff that gets put out and it's just kind of thrown out or put on the street. And I think that's the bigger challenge for us is how do we, how do we educate or communicate that when that stuff gets put out or how it gets separated. And I see a lot of things that just kind of get thrown out or put out on the side that aren't recyclable or gets mixed in. And I think that would be one of the challenges of the mandatory aspect. The other thing I'd like to see added is, when so many people are trying to upgrade their homes, is adding some additional products such as paint and maybe electronics and some things like that, and figure out a way, is there a place we can drop that stuff off? I looked at one time, I think you had to go to Dover or maybe a further distance to drop things like that off to recycle. But other than that, it's necessary for us to do it, particularly a small town like this. So I'm very supportive of it.
Wonderful. In our magazine, Letters from Camp Rehoboth, earlier this year, we published the HRC Municipality Equality Index, which ranks cities based on how supportive they are of the LGBTQ community. And in that score, there was room for improvement in Rehoboth Beach. One criteria, for example, was making single-stall restrooms all gender restrooms as a way of being more inclusive and welcoming for transgender and non-binary folks. So I would welcome your thoughts on our score in the HRC Municipality Equality Index, and specifically what things you would want to improve on that score.
Rachel's first.
I did not see that article, but I can comment more around just CAMP's role here in Rehoboth, and I actually did respond to this as a question in one of the questionnaires, but I do think that CAMP is recognized as a leader, and I support the rights of the LGBTQ+, and I think that the services and benefits that you support today and offer to the members of this community are really important. So I think if there's anything that we can do to help strengthen those needs or requests, I think that we should consider them here in this town.
I read that report, and I think, if my memory serves me correctly, Rehoboth came in third. That seems to be in my memory bank somewhere. But we didn't come in first. So we always, I think, want to be perceived and known as the absolute best. I have not heard much publicity about this particular report. I even asked some of my neighbors who just happened to be gay if they knew about it, and they did not. So I think one of the things we can do better is not only to make improvements, but to publicize whatever is in the report that folks really need to take hold of and understand and internalize. I think we could do a better job of that. And I think there might have been a presentation to the commissioners back in January. I don't know if that's completely accurate. Y'all can check me on that if you like. But if that's the case, this is almost August. And I would have thought I would have seen or heard, and it could certainly be my fault, but I would have thought we would have had a lot more dialogue about this particular issue in the last 8 months or so, 7 months.
Yeah, I know, excuse me, I know Commissioner Czarnowski's been working on this, and I think he had brought it up, and I've watched it on one of the commissioners' meetings, and also had a conversation with Commissioner Czarnowski about it. It'd be a very easy thing for the city to do, and some locations to do the gender neutral bathrooms, and I know other cities have implemented it, and it's important to do, to make sure that we welcome all people to the city and make them feel comfortable, and show that we are welcoming. We've been that way for a long time here in Rehoboth, and it's the reason a lot of people are here and love our city. One of the things that I advocated, and this might help with communication, is if you've watched any of the commissioner meetings, there's always a time for the people from Main Street to get up to speak, and always a time for the people from the chamber to get up to speak. And the LGBTQ community has been so vital and important to our city that I advocated that I believe somebody from CAMP should get up as well and also give a presentation during those meetings, so that it's on record so people know what's going on as well within the LGBTQ community and what's going on here at CAMP, because I think that's important. So I think that would be one way to enhance communication, because CAMP is a vital part of this community, and it's important for all of us to know what's going on. Thank you.
Thank you. Richard.
I read the report also, and it was disheartening to think that our community, we think, is out in the forefront because of the leadership and modeling from CAMP. Like Tim said, Commissioner Czarnowski, who was here earlier, has reported on this and encouraged us as a commission to get this on our agendas and to begin to talk about it. And we do need to do that. We do need to be doing better as a community. When we come out ranking third or lower across the state in an area that we should be doing much better on, we have to become intentional about it. It's not just because we think we should be doing better because camp is in our backyard. We have to strategize. We have to possibly put some budget to it. We have to use what the model here at Camp Rehoboth is to help lead the city in this direction. We do have money in the budget for family assistance restrooms. We are moving in that direction in a very purposeful kind of way. That's going to lead us toward gender-neutral bathrooms at all, where family members, others that are not comfortable in the current gender-specific restrooms are. So we can improve, we can move that direction. I'm glad the question was asked, David, because it's something we need to, as a commission, get on top of. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Next question. As we all know, some of our businesses downtown are still suffering the COVID effect. And our question is, how can we better manage the way seasonal workers are transported to their jobs in Rehoboth? And how can we make working in our city more attractive to attract those seasonal workers that are so sorely needed? And I think we start with Toni, if I'm not mistaken.
I think one of the things that comes up over and over again is the seasonal worker parking issue. That's a real barrier for folks. And I've always wondered, and through experience, a few years ago there was an attempt by a private business to start running a little jitney service here in town to pick up people and deposit them very quickly and easily where they needed to go. And I think the way that ended up was that the business owner could not get the appropriate insurance at the time. And it was odd because you think in lots of other resort communities, you see these sorts of ways to move people. So one of the things I would absolutely advocate, and I wonder if it is a possibility, is whether or not the city at some point, if this turns out to be a real priority to our businesses, which it very well may be, maybe there is an opportunity for the city to look into it as a, almost like an entrepreneur would, as to whether or not there's a need, whether or not we can fill the need, whether it's a priority, and whether we can fund it.
Yeah, I know I had done some work with some cities out west with this issue, particularly around ski resort areas that had similar issues in terms of cost of affordability for housing. And we're rapidly becoming similar to that in that it's expensive to live here. And so for seasonal workers to come here to stay, I think in terms of when we talk about what the city can do, I know we had sold some property recently and we're wondering what to do with that money. It might help to subsidize some housing, some affordable housing for seasonal workers, or to try to figure out how we could help the businesses or help bring in some affordable housing for people to work here. I don't know what the issues are with visas for some of the students. I think that's more of a national thing in terms of bringing in some workers. But I do think we're rapidly running up against the issue of affordable housing and whether we can get people to even come here to work, because we've gotten a little bit out of reach in terms of being able to afford to come in here and make it profitable for the businesses to bring them in and for them to come here.
Well, post-COVID has put us into a very unique and challenging time frame. While everything has gone up very quickly, we're probably at the peak of all tourists in our community and across this nation that we maybe have ever had during the summer season. Not everything else has moved as quickly. And so many of us are saying, and the mantra is patience, kindness, let's give this some time. And so we don't have enough workers. Hopefully this is going to even out. Like I mentioned earlier this morning, the city, in collaboration with the Cape and Lopez School System and with the Chamber of Commerce, is providing free parking at the elementary school for employees. That is open every day until the school year starts. First time ever that's creative use of space that would otherwise be sitting empty. It's a short walk into downtown. Just gets them off of in front of our homes, off of the streets, makes it a little easier for the workers to come into town. Tim mentioned affordable housing. That is a critical issue. Whose role that is, I don't know. But one of the things we're not doing very well is communicating with the businesses. How many businesses are here today? Why? I mean, I knew there were none because I know most of you and what you do. Our businesses are not here. How do we bring them into these discussions so that as we work to balance these issues, our various identities in town, residents, business, and tourists, we're in this together. We know we're interdependent. So let's bring those folks in for these hard discussions and do some problem solving together for the future. Thanks, Charlie.
I actually agree with Dick, especially his last part of his statement there. One of the things that I'd love to see us do is put together a customer experience council, which is comprised of some residents and businesses so that we can talk about what those concerns are, especially as it relates to our businesses. One of the things that I've already said is I think we need to retain and attract that kind of shop local, small business mentality here in Rehoboth. And I know we have a lot of great, unique, quaint shops today, but I don't want to see them leave either. I've taken time to walk up and down Rehoboth Avenue and talk to shop owners, and I think there is an opportunity to listen to what their concerns are. There are some simple things from a communication standpoint that I think we can work out very quickly, but there's unfortunately this recurring theme that I heard talking to shop owners that the city doesn't really care if they're here or not. And I think we as a community want to make sure that we're really sending the right message and obviously communicating with these shop owners. Two things that we're talking about here, parking. I think we already talked about the idea of possibly the school. I think there's also some other creativity that we could think about as far as identifying, some other parking spots that may not be used, and we can ask folks to kind of offer those up for certain businesses. And then as it relates to the housing piece, it's funny, I was at a Clear Space Theater event a week ago, and I was looking through the patron book, and I saw host housing for the actors, and I thought, you know what, maybe there's an opportunity here that we might have some folks that have space in their homes or cottages in the back that they're not using that we might be able to use to help our businesses with their employees so that they can be closer to their work. So again, I think there's some conversations we could have, residents and businesses together, to see how we can ensure that our town continues to thrive and be vital.
Wonderful. The Baltimore Avenue and Wilmington Avenue Streetscape Task Force has been working on the redesign of the first two blocks of Baltimore Avenue and the first two blocks of Wilmington Avenue, and then 1st and 2nd Street. One part of that discussion has been LGBTQ branding for this block of Baltimore Avenue. We've, if you look at other cities that market to the LGBTQ community, you'll see rainbow crosswalks in places like DC or Philly. You'll see historical banners and pylons in places like Chicago. You'll see murals and other artistic pieces in places like Key West. So what are your thoughts on branding this block of Baltimore Avenue as an LGBTQ destination? And any other thoughts that you have on the Baltimore Avenue Streetscape Task Force? And we're starting with...
I think that's, having lived in Chicago and having lived in cities in Philadelphia that have done that, I think it's a great thing. It's certainly, you and I talked about Instagram moments. I mean, they certainly, those certainly are. And, but I think they need to be done in coordination with the neighborhood as well, and talk with all the businesses and talk to the people that live here and say, hey, here's our ideas of what we want to do, or what we think could be some good ideas. What do you think? And come up with ideas where we can integrate some LGBTQ imagery that everybody can agree on. But I think that would be a great addition to the city. I think the idea of beautifying, I guess for lack of a better word, the two blocks is needed and welcomed. I've heard only good things about doing it. I would even go a step further. I would say let's get rid of cars and there and make it. I would make it an open. I would put outdoor dining in the streets there and make it more of a pedestrian walkway myself and get rid of the cars. But I'm sure that's not popular. But I think what we've done with outdoor dining and everything around here is fantastic. I don't even know why we're talking about not doing it. But so I would say that doing an LGBT themed area around here would make a lot of sense. But I think we should talk to some of the other businesses and see what other ideas they may have as well to enhance it.
Great, thanks. I'm frequently asked to say in a few words, kind of, what is my vision for the city of Rehoboth Beach? And I always respond, I can do that in just a few words. We want to be a welcoming, clean, safe, prosperous for all, and environmentally friendly town. That's what Streetscape is all about. It comes under that umbrella. It's overdue. It's needed. I am so happy that we're moving forward and the mayor is pushing this agenda for us, and we need to, I think, bump it up and move it even a little quicker maybe than this task force is doing, because it's so exciting for our city. It's so important for those businesses. Again, it comes back to this balance of a prosperous downtown is going to mean a prosperous residential community, and it talks about the interdependence that we have in our resort community. I think to the question about an LGBTQ theme in the block, I think that's exciting. I think deserves a lot of discussion. When I wrote the legislation and went to the commissioners and helped move the city toward creating Steve Elkins' Way, city manager back here will remember a conversation that I had with her about now what I'd like to do is have a rainbow crosswalk that leads out of Steve Elkins' Way onto this block. And it was like the city manager said, one step at a time. Let's, take a look at our resources, take a look at who we are. And again, it does mean a community discussion. Neighbors have to agree. It has to make sense to everyone. But these are exciting opportunities, and we can do it kind of under, I think, a sense of celebration. How do we celebrate these great things in our city like Camp Rehoboth? Thank you.
Rachel, please.
On the Streetscape project, I'll just start there. I am excited about it. I'm glad that we finally got it kicked off. I think it's one of the probably hallmarks of the mayor's run over the last year as mayor, and I think that he's certainly getting a good response from the work that's underway there. I think as it relates to the Baltimore Avenue, I think it's a great conversation perhaps for the Customer Experience Council, where we can have the businesses and residents get together and let's talk that through and make sure that we are satisfying, the concerns and ideas that everybody has. I think all in all, it sounds like a great opportunity here on Baltimore, and I would certainly be supportive of it. But I think it's a great opportunity to bring the community into that discussion and have more dialogue around it, just so that we have it, in keeping and fitting with what everyone wants that outcome to look like. I do think from a beautification perspective, there's opportunity to do that in our city here, and then perhaps even on Wilmington with a different theme, So I think there's more discussion here that we could have. But anything we can do to improve the appearance and the welcoming aspect to our town is important. And like Dick, as I think about the vision for Rehoboth, a welcoming, thriving, safe coastal community is what I would like to see us always accomplish and have in mind when we have these conversations about initiatives and projects and bringing people together to talk about them. Thank you.
I am pro beautification on many, many levels. And what I'd like to offer in this discussion is it's the Steve Elkins way. And what I mean by that is the approach. I believe just sitting here, I've always reflected on the fact, I think it's wonderful to think about how all this came together after decades of hard work. And one of the things I learned about him was his approach to things. You get the right stakeholders and you talk out your challenges and your differences, and inclusion is a beautiful thing at the end of the day. So I would be so supportive within the context of everything we do in Rehoboth to apply the Steve Elkins way approach to get from point A to point B, and I think it's a winning combination. And one of the things I really appreciate in all projects is being able to see it, touch it, feel it. We're in the space that took decades, I think, to get from vision to the actual project itself.
We have 2 more questions and time for one, so I'm going to combine these two.
Okay, we'll talk about.
Wait, do we get 6 minutes? Never mind.
What are your thoughts on the revised tree ordinance that has been underway for some time? And there's been some talk in town of people trying to find a way to preserve some of our older homes. And we wish that you would give us your thoughts on those 2 subjects, tree ordinance and older homes. And we start with, last time? Rachel. I think we start with Dick this time.
Starts with Dick.
Oh, okay. We are in great need of a revised tree ordinance. Those of you that have dealt with it or have neighbors who have wrangled with the city a little bit about trees, it's been difficult to understand. It's not as straightforward, a little ambiguous to some people. And so people have taken stabs at the tree ordinance over the last 10 plus years. And Commissioner Gay has been asked by the mayor to kind of lead a group to think about that, because I chair the Environment Committee that falls nice and neat into one of the charges and the mission of the Environment Committee. The Environment Committee has had some pretty complex discussions, and members of the Environment Committee have given me a lot of input, which I put in a summary report, and I sent to the mayor and Commissioner Gay recently. It's critical that the tree code is updated and makes sense for the future. We want to remain a tree city. We want to grow the tree canopy in the city so that it becomes more than 50%, as was mentioned earlier. We can do that, but it has to make sense. It has to make sense to homeowners. It has to make sense to public property, and we need then resources to put behind it. So we are moving that ahead. I suspect that by the end of summer, September, we will have some drafts in front of us to begin some public debate and discussion on. I'm all for preserving older homes. I think the mentality of tear down happens way too often and way too quick. I understand why it happens sometimes, but I think we could incentivize folks also to think about ways to preserve and to reuse older homes that make sense to them. There's a lot of good reasons to do that. Thank you.
Rachel, please.
Okay, so I am on the Plant, Shade, and Tree Commission, and I have been for 3 years now. This is a topic that we have been tackling, honestly, on our commission. I've actually worked through 2 iterations under 2 different commission leaderships on this topic, and I do think that there's an opportunity to streamline this ordinance for folks to be able to understand it, much like our code, where we can have a more crisp, concise, and clear ordinance around trees. The commission that I'm on, is for folks that aren't familiar with it, I actually hear the exception cases. So many times the tree discussion is taken care of kind of with the building and development side of a project. But in cases where someone disagrees or has an issue with a tree that they want to have a kind of an exception, they can actually, put in a request to have their case heard, and then that would come before the Plant, Tree, and Shade Commission. So I've already provided input on 2 different documents over the last 3 years on this, and I agree with Dick that is probably going to be coming up here with the mayor and commissioner shortly. As it relates to preserving of older homes, I also think that there's an opportunity here to provide incentives for folks that do want to preserve older homes. In some cases, I do think it's probably difficult and even more costly for people to do that, which is one of the reasons why they choose to go new. Obviously, for older homes, you're typically dealing with older code around electrical, possibly asbestos, and it's not necessarily always safe. But there are ways you can remediate, and there are ways that you can preserve, that look and feel and charm of a home if you so choose to do that. But I think that comes down to a personal choice, but I am an advocate. If someone wants to preserve their home, I think we should try to help them provide incentives to do that.
Thank you. Toni?
You know, if either one of these topics were easy, it would have been done by now, because we've been talking and talking and talking about these things. So the one thing I would offer on this is, as the work has continued, I would certainly be an advocate for moving it as quickly as possible through the commissioners if I were to be on the commission at that time. I think the older homes is really, really a difficult issue. I benefit from the fact that when I built my home, it was a vacant lot to begin with. So I did not have to make what I think is a very difficult decision. And I've been in lots of discussions of trying to come up with what could the incentive program be. Well, you look, one of the barriers is you look at our taxes. You could go to zero, but it's not an astronomical rate to begin with. I don't know if you've noticed, but I have, that it's not like some other cities that we may know of. So I would advocate for all of us to try to pick up the pace for solutions on two very, very difficult and complicated issues.
My name is Tim Bennett, and I have a tree problem. As I told,
You're in the right
as,
town.
as I opened up, we got a lot of rules and a lot of tree rules, and I have a tree problem in my yard. I wanted to invite all the commissioners over and give them hard hats, because I can't sit in the yard for 6 months out of the year because of this nuisance tree that I've been told I can't take down. So I empathize with the issues regarding the trees, and I do think the city. I do think there are cases where the city needs to be a bit more understanding about someone who purchases a home and then you're told I said I'd plant 50 trees around the city in order to take this tree down that's growing in the middle of a deck that's pushing boards up, and it's a real nuisance. So I don't understand, and I hope that the new tree codes are a bit more understanding to homeowners. In terms of there's a house that was just taken down next to me that was a great looking, I thought, nice kind of bungalow home. But it was taken down, and it seems when you take a house down, you can kind of clear the lot of trees too, by the way, versus someone that has an existing house. But I don't know who decides what houses can stay and what don't, and I don't know if we need some sort of an architectural review committee, not somebody that's going to tell you can't paint your door a certain color or you can't put a bathroom in or something, but more to figure out what is the character of the city, what is the character of our buildings, and what is the character of the town, similar to what they've done with some cities out west, I think, in terms of what the building styles would be. But it would be great, as Rachel had mentioned, about preserving some homes and assisting owners in that, but it's kind of coming up with what is that look and what is that style.
Thank you. Well, thank you. All right, we're going to give each candidate 2 minutes to say whatever you darn well please. This is your closing statement, and I think we start with Rachel.
All right, as I mentioned in my opening comments, many of the issues we discussed today have been issues for many years, and sometimes it does feel like we're stuck in the past. But for Rehoboth to be vital in the future, it's critical to maintain a balance between residences, businesses, and visitors, and we are all in this together. My unique background of serving Rehoboth currently on the Planning Commission, the Plant, Shade, and Tree Commission, and helping Main Street with marketing and communications projects, along with my experience serving on community boards, as well as church, school, and committees in Delaware, has allowed me to build a network of relationships throughout the state, city, county, and state level. My kids refer to me as the manager of miracles. When a problem needs to be solved, my family, friends, and network know I'll find a way to get help, funding, or resources to address the issue. I have some ideas on how to address updating the code, the infrastructure projects we talked about, parking, and executing the CVP. As I said, my approach is to ask, listen, and act. and seek to understand before being understood. As a commissioner, you have my commitment to leverage the work and experience I've gained on the Planning Commission and Park, Shade, and Tree Commission. The Board of Commissioners are responsible for implementing initiatives around the CDP or strategy of our city. With the countless hours of work and research I've already put into the CDP and contacts I've made across the state, I will work tirelessly to serve the residents and businesses in Rehoboth, to keep the city clean, safe, charming, welcoming, and vital for years to come. I will also focus on improving customer experience in Rehoboth. The impact I've made on my family, track record, and positive example I've earned serving various communities is what I also bring to the commissioner role. I will also offer proven business experience, success, positive energy, a team-oriented attitude and commitment to all stakeholders of our wonderful coastal town. So hopefully you'll see these same qualities and competencies in me and vote for me in this year's election. Thank you. And I will just say I have some brochures on the back table if you'd like to take some, and also my website is rachelforrehoboth.com. Thank you.
Thank you, Rachel. Toni?
I am tired of talking about me. And I'll be honest about that because we get 2 minutes for the close, and next to Rachel's information is my information. I'm both sharp.
We have the same color.
Yeah, we do.
Okay.
My time.
I'm sorry.
Rachel, stop. Oh, that was old.
I'm
That's
trying to
microphone.
distract you.
I can tell. Anyway, you can read as much as you want to read on my website. I have a track record, I have a voting record, and that's all I'll say about that. I want to do 2 quick commercials. One is for the Commemorative Tree Fund. I don't know if everybody is aware that we have a program that was started when I was the chair of the Mayor's Advisory Committee on Trees. You can go to the city website, you can go to the resident section, you can drop down and click on Commemorative Tree Fund. What this fund does is it makes it possible by contributions that are on the art installation you may or may not have seen in City Hall. It makes it an opportunity for a public-private partnership. The other thing I wanted to talk about, so please take a minute. You can pick these up at City Hall. You can find all the information on the website to participate in this program. The other one is something going on right now today, and I think for the next 3 weekends. The library. There is a library raffle going on under a tent over at the library. We're all here in town. Maybe we could walk over there, buy some raffle tickets. They are an independent asset here in the city of Rehoboth Beach, and supporting them, because they are not having a big event this year, supporting them, I would think would be great. And Charles says he thinks so too, and that's it.
Yes, please.
Thanks. I want to thank Mark, David, at RBHA and CAMP, and all of you for being here. Also, all the others on stage doing this. Being commissioner is a big job, and so I thank all of you as well. As we all know, it's a lot of work and a lot of commitment. I've been encouraged. I don't have any record. I'm the political newcomer. I've only lived here 4 years, but I've been coming here since the 80s, and I've been encouraged by a lot of homeowners going door to door that said, "We don't know you, but you're the new name." And I didn't use the red, white, and blue scheme because I knew you guys all did, so I used hot pink. And then someone said, "Of course you did. You're the gay guy." So, but I didn't even think of that. So, but in my course of business, there was always 2 things, and I think the voters have a decision to make too. And while we're all qualified and we all certainly can serve the city, you have a decision to make. And I would make the same decision when I would spend millions of dollars within the business side. And that's what you're asking us to do. You're going to entrust us with millions of dollars of your money as taxpayers. And you want to make sure that the people that you entrust are going to take votes and make votes that are either going to help the city or they're going to hurt the city. And you want to make sure that you're either going to help the brand or hurt the brand, meaning brand Rehoboth, the nation's summer capital. And so your decision on the 14th is to decide which way you want to go. Do you want to vote in people that you think are going to continue to make the city better? and continue to make the city grow. And that's really in your hands right now. And I hope that one of those people you choose is me, and give a fresh voice and somebody else a seat at the table that's not had a chance before. So I thank you. Go to voteTimBennett.com.
Thank you.
Richard. What a wonderful Saturday morning event we have had. This is democracy in action. This doesn't happen in a lot of places. So thank you all for coming out, giving your time this morning to say that this is important. Voting is critically important. I have literature back there, stickers, brochures, help yourself. A little different color than some of the other ones. But being involved is what's important to me. I've had a lifelong history of working in education, administration, management, working with young people and senior citizens, from animals to politics. And it all comes down to kind of the policies that we choose and that we work hard on, which are led by values. And my values say that democracy in action like this is critically important. I'm a team player. I'm a team member. I work hard with my colleagues. It's gratifying to see current and former commissioners here, our state auditor, Chief Banks, city manager, Senator Lopez here. This says a lot about our community, that we show up. And I show up. And I can tell you, if Ernie Lopez was still here, I'd almost bring him up and have us give him a round of applause, because I got a call from him about 3 nights ago, and he indicated that because of work I was doing and conversations I'd had with Pete Schwarzkopf and Ernie, $50,000 is coming to our city for a beautification program on the 1B entrance and exit of our city. I know how to bring resources into our city. I could talk to you later about a whole lot of that. But this is an exciting, wonderful opportunity. Thank you for the opportunity to have served you, and please vote. I humbly ask for your vote, August 14th.
Thank you. So I've asked you all to hold your applause, but I think you need not hold it any longer. Thank you.